the defeated former president charged by the House with inciting the violent mob attack on the U.S. Capitol to overturn the election. The second impeachment trial begins today as Senate leaders are closing in on an agreement that would give each side up to 16 hours to present their cases and the potential for a debate and voting on calling witnesses if the House impeachment managers seek it. The riots, which broke out soon after he gave a speech near the White House falsely claiming he won the election, resulted in 5 deaths, including the killing of a U.S. Capitol police officer. Former aides told CNN that he had enjoyed watching his supporters storm the U.S. Capitol. As the former president goes to trial in the Senate on charges of inciting the Capitol insurrection, criminal and civil investigations into his businesses are also accelerating in New York. Republican Representative Ron Wright of Texas has died. This was announced by his congressional office yesterday, saying that he had been admitted to the hospital after contracting COVID-19. The first sitting member of Congress to die after contracting COVID. In December, Congressman-elect Luke Letlow had died after being diagnosed with the disease. And on the same day it hosted Super Bowl 55, Florida became the first state to report 200 cases of coronavirus variants. The game itself was played before 22,000 masked fans, many of them vaccinated healthcare workers, at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium. But videos on social media after the game showed revelers in Tampa, many maskless and ignoring social distancing guidelines as they celebrated in the streets. And as the U.S. is coming down from a post-holiday surge in COVID-19 cases, the new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a message: stay close to home. And we would really encourage people to not travel. South Africa has put its rollout of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine on hold after a study showed disappointing results against the new variant. The United States said it would re-engage with the UN Human Rights Council nearly 3 years after former President Trump's administration withdrew. An ally of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny urging Russians today to gather near their homes for a brief Valentine's Day protest, shining their mobile phone torches and lighting candles in heart shapes to flood social media. Tens of thousands have taken to the streets in recent weeks to protest against the jailing of Navalny. The United Arab Emirates' first mission to Mars is set to reach the Red Planet and enter its orbit today following a 7-month, 494 million-kilometer journey, allowing it to start sending data about the Martian atmosphere and climate. This would make the UAE the 5th space agency to reach the planet. Iran's intelligence ministers warned the West that his country could push for a nuclear weapon if crippling international sanctions on Tehran remain in place. And its foreign minister, Javad Zarif, discussed how to make progress towards a nationwide ceasefire and reviving the political process in Yemen. Leaders of rival Palestinian factions began Egyptian-brokered reconciliation talks in Cairo yesterday to try to heal long-standing internal divisions ahead of planned Palestinian elections later this year. And the Democratic Republic of Congo president vowed to pursue a resolution to a long-running dispute over Ethiopia's Blue Nile River megadam during his tenure as chair of the African Union. Ethnic clashes in Darfur could reignite Sudan's old conflict as Sudan's prime minister announced a new cabinet bringing in 7 ex-rebel chiefs as ministers following a peace deal in October aimed to end decades of war. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. North Korea has modernized its nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles by flaunting United Nations sanctions using cyber attacks to help finance its programs and continue to seek material and technology overseas for its arsenals. The panel of experts monitoring sanctions on the Northeast Asian nation said in a report sent to the Security Council members today that North Korea's total theft of virtual assets from 2019 to 2020 is valued at approximately $316.4 million. Police cracked down on demonstrators opposing Myanmar's military coup, firing warning shots and shooting water cannons to disperse crowds that took to the streets again. In defiance of rules making protests illegal, water cannons were used in Mandalay, Myanmar's second biggest city, where witnesses said at least 2 warning shots were fired to try to break up the crowd out there. Protests in Myanmar against the military coup that removed Aung San Suu Kyi's government from power have grown in recent days, despite official efforts to make organizing them difficult or even illegal. A senior Sri Lankan church official has asked President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to give him access to a presidential commission's report on Easter Sunday bomb attacks in 2019. The report by a commission comprising judges has not been made public. The Roman Catholic Archbishop of Colombo, Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, has written to Rajapaksa to make the request. And Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen wished China a happy Lunar New Year today, but said she will not yield to China, which claims democratic Taiwan as its own territory, has increased its military activity around the island in recent months, responding to what Beijing calls collusion between Taipei and Washington, Taiwan's most important international backer. China is ready to consider vaccine cooperation with Central and Eastern European countries, according to President Xi Jinping today in a meeting held by video link with European leaders. Serbia has received 1 million doses of the Chinese-developed coronavirus vaccine, and Hungarian and Chinese vaccine developers are cooperating. 2 U.S. carrier groups conducted joint exercises in the South China Sea today, days after a U.S. warship sailed near Chinese-controlled islands in the disputed waters that have emerged as another flashpoint in strained Sino-U.S. relations. The Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group and the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group conducted this multitude of exercises aimed at increasing interoperability between assets as well as command and control capabilities. President Biden made his first official call with Indian Prime Minister Modi last night. The White House read out notes the leaders of the world's second and third most populous nations committed to working closely together on the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and promoting a free and open Indo-Pacific region. President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Modi agreeing in a telephone call to strengthen Indo-Pacific security through the Quad grouping of countries that is seen as a way to push back against China's growing assertiveness in the region. India, United States, Japan, and Australia are members of the Quad, an informal group that Washington has been promoting to work as a potential bulwark against China's increasing political, commercial, and military activity in the Indo-Pacific. President Biden spoke with Prime Minister Modi with the leaders of the world's 2 biggest democracies agreeing to strengthen their nation's partnership at a moment when both countries face strained relations with China. India and Afghanistan today signed an agreement to build the Shahtut Dam in Kabul to provide drinking water facility in the Afghan capital. This was a virtual summit where External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and his Afghan counterpart Mohammad Hanif Atmar signed the Memorandum of Understanding in the presence of Prime Minister Modi and Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. Expressing concern of the rising violence in Afghanistan, Prime Minister Modi termed targeting of the civilians, journalists and workers by the terrorists a cowardice act and asserted that both India and Afghanistan want to see the region free of terrorism. 35 people have died and 165 people missing, and that after the Himalayan glacier disaster, highlighting climate change. As many bodies have been found, and it is Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath who's sending teams of ministers to Uttarakhand for better coordination with the state in carrying out relief work. And many villagers near Chamoli have expressed concern that these flash floods may be the result of heat being produced by a radioactive device. Congress MP Suresh moved an adjournment motion notice in the Lok Sabha today demanding an investigation in the probable cause to determine environmental destruction in view of the glacier lake burst in Uttarakhand. Bidding farewell to 4 outgoing members of the Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister Modi sang high praises for Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad and broke down several times while reminiscing about his close association with him. India is the fastest country in the world to vaccinate 6 million people in 24 days. We do have the Union Health Ministry saying that 15 states and union territories have not reported any death linked to the coronavirus in the last 24 hours. Rishi Kapoor and Randhir Kapoor's younger brother Rajiv Kapoor has died at the age of 58 due to a massive heart attack this morning. And from the highs of Australia to the lows of Chennai, things changed dramatically and quickly for an Indian cricket team as they crashed to a 227-run defeat against England in the first test at the Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai today. India slipping to 4th position in the World Test Championship rankings after that defeat, and the underwhelming batting performances in the first innings gave England that decisive advantage, according to skipper Virat Kohli. And the body language and intensity were not up to the mark, said the very disappointed Indian captain, counting the many errors his team committed in that massive loss to a more professional and consistent England in the opening test in Chennai today. Head coach Misbah-ul Haq has his eye on a top 3 world ranking for the national side in all formats of the game following their first test series win over South Africa since 2003. Pakistan earned a hard-fought 95-run victory in the second test in Rawalpindi yesterday to claim the 2-match series 2-0. And families of missing climbers in Pakistan have said it's a difficult decision to proceed with their rescue mission after 72 grueling hours of non-stop intensive efforts that were halted the day before due to bad weather. Hopes for the survival of 3 climbers waning as heavy clouds continue to obscure K2 today. 3 people were found to be carrying weapons, arrested from the central gate of a sessions court in Lahore this morning.